Hello, welcome to my tutorial series, Mobile Website Design. So in this series, I'll guide you through how to design effective module view controller framework from scratch. So I will use a simple login form to demonstrate that example. So what we have here is a simple login form, okay? And when I save this page, so we have a simple login page like that, okay? And so what I want to do now is to guide you through how you can create a module view controller framework out of this login page, okay? Now, to do so, because you know that it's a code separation we are doing, right? And you use your content div to guide you in separating your code. If there's any image you want to pass on to every page, you can put it right below the first content div. And then from there, you can call order out. Anything above the content and below the content goes with your separation. So you start from the opening div content, everything from there to the top, call order out and save as your header. Everything that goes below that, below your content, so above your content and below your content is what you're separating basically. So below will now be saved as your footer. Okay, so and then you save it right there as your footer. After you've done that, all that is left now is simply include them in your code. So to include them, you use a PHP include keyword that will go to the views folder where you save those files and include those files for you. So likewise, you can do the same for the footer. So when you paste this right there, change that header to footer. Okay. So you got all your pages now saved. By the time you refresh your page, it will still load, no problem, because they are all detached and included to the same page. Okay. So now that you've done that, we are now trying to do a module view controller framework. Okay, so before I go ahead and detach this code, let me show you in this example what we're trying to do now is to grab the user input and echo that back to ourselves and then use that to design our framework. Okay, so because it's a form element, what you have to do here is to obtain those form elements, you can set that up like that. If you set $_post. We are using post here because it's a post method as specified in the form element. And what you want to go inside that single quotes will be the value set to the name attribute of the input field in question, or any one of the input fields. So let's say, for instance, we want to use the email. So if the form is submitted, run this code. Create a local variable to hold that value for us, the value of the email. And likewise, you do the same for your password field. So it's then every form element must have a name attribute if you want to use PHP to process that form element upon submission. So they use the name attribute value. So the action attribute is the page that will process the form upon submission, which is this index.php. Okay, so now that you've done that, you want to go ahead and echo that yourself. So you can echo email and password on the same line of code. Just separate them with dots. If you need to attach any single quotes, separate them with dots for your variable, dots ending your variable, and then single quote for your strings. End of your statement right there. So you can say password is that. Okay, so once you've done that, now you can get some space, shift that about to get some space, and then you put a horizontal row. Okay, so now when we save this form, right, if we refresh this page and input our email and the password, it will output back to us accordingly as my password. That's echoed back to us accordingly. Okay, so we've got a form element now. So what we're trying to do now in a model view controller is to separate this HTML code here, this form submission. In other words, this user interface is your view. That's PHP code that is processing that form upon submission is your model. Okay, so we need to create a model out of that, create a view out of that, and then create a controller class that will be able to load our view and the model. Okay, so to do that, what we have to do here is to cut all this out and then save it as a view in the views folder. So you open up a new file, choose your language, and then save this in your views folder. So what we want to do here is to save that in the views folder as a separate folder to represent that page. Call that folder name login. So we use folder names to represent our pages. Every page we save is called index.php. So every new page we shall create will have a folder name as the name of that page and should have index.php in that page to represent that page. Okay, so once you've done that, you now need to go back to the code to bring that in. Okay, so now you can use the same code to bring it in, include, and because you know that it's saved in the login folder and it's called index, so you save it, it will require that views login index.php. Okay, and so when you save this form and refresh again, it's still loading. Okay, yeah, your page, your view is still loading. So the user interface, this is the view, and the user interaction processes will be in the models for that view. Okay, so what we want to do here now is to create a view class, and to do that, we just go ahead and create a class called a view. Class name curly brackets, yeah? And now we want to create a function. You can call that render view page. So as the name suggests, all it will do is to render a view page for you. So in object-oriented programming, it's the same line of code you know how to write. You are wrapping up in a function. Okay, so what we want this method to do is to render files. So give a file name as a parameter because we want that to load any file as well, not just any single file. So what you do is separate all your strings here with single quotes and variable your dots. Okay, so by the time you call this method now, it will render your page for you. So that's object-oriented programming. So all you have to do now is to create a view class object followed by the class name. End of your statement right there. Now, by the time you use this object, you can call that method. So object-oriented programming allows you to use a class object to call a method in the class, like that. That's created and signed. At this stage now, what you want to load is your header. Okay. So you can go ahead and put header there. Separate it with a single quote because it's a string. So now you've included your header. Okay. Likewise, all you can do now to render the other one is change that to login index. So, and finally, you render. So now that you've done that, your page should load accordingly. You don't need that line of code anymore, you see. So now the same code we've written, we've wrapped it up in an object, and then using that function to call the methods. So by the time I save this page now and refresh, it will load accordingly. So I will stop this video here and continue the next video. Thank you for watching. Bye.